Welcome back. Politicians are being cautioned to not rule out the youth vote this election season. Former statistician and researcher Edwin St. Catherine says that while the number of voters which fall between the youth bracket may be less than any other group of voters, the youth bring an interesting dynamic to the mix.
With the youth, you have greater enthusiasm. You have more creativity. They make songs and they can energize a campaign even if they don't vote, right? So that does count for something. But the other thing I've seen, for example, people say, well, there's the youth are likely to support this party or that party. The thing is, also, youth have the influence of the adults, and they see the struggles their parents go through, right? And households tend to vote as a unit, right? In spite of the antics the youth may display on some show, right? So that is not something to be downplayed.
That was researcher Edwin St. Catherine. Former CARICOM ambassador to Haiti, Earl Huntley, has weighed in on the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moise. Huntley says this act has further thrust the country into turmoil and sunk it even deeper into the abyss.
This assassination marks a dramatic increase in the insecurity which had been gripping the country recently. Only last week, the country witnessed the murder of two young journalists, one of them a female who had been an activist organizing protests against the disappearance of billions of dollars of Petro-Caribbean funds under the administration of Moise's predecessor, Michel Martelly, and their PHTK party. And 2 weeks ago, armed gangs led by an ex-policeman called Barbecue blatantly demonstrated openly in the capital with their arms against the government and the bourgeois families who control Haiti's economy. It is reported and it has been claimed that those gangs which have been terrorizing the country, particularly Port-au-Prince, were in fact being supported by some of those families and the government itself.
He says given the unrest that was already taking place in the country, many fingers will be pointed when trying to determine who may have killed the president.
So who could have been behind this assassination? There are many theories. Could it be some of the big bourgeois families whom he had alienated? Could it be members of his own party who were not happy with the direction in which he was going, which he thought was self-serving and not in the interest of the party, which would have damaged the party's chances in elections? Could it be opposition forces or even the drug dealers, as some are now suggesting? The circumstances of the assassination, where only Moise and his wife were attacked, are very mysterious. It is a measure of his unpopularity that there's not much mourning in Haiti for him. But Haiti is now in a dire constitutional crisis. No president, no parliament except for 10 senators, a prime minister appointed by the president on Monday, but seen as illegitimate by the opposition because they regarded the president as illegitimate.
For the most part, Moise was seen as a radical figure. Huntley says this may be why there appears to be mixed reaction to his assassination.
Moise had the backing of the US and the OAS and was holding on to power. Then there was his insistence of holding a referendum to change the constitution, which can be deemed to be illegal as the constitution does not allow for changes to be made by a referendum. Moise was accused by some of trying to become a dictator. At the same time, the opposition was insisting that the conditions were not right for elections in September, which Moise wanted to organize.
It has been reported that 4 people suspected of being involved in the assassination of the president were killed by the police in a gun battle and 2 others were arrested. One resident of Sunbelt Castries is calling on the water company Wasco to do better when it comes to communication. She says the community has been without water for some time and residents are in the dark as to why they have been left without water for so long.
Hurricane Elsa left the majority of the island without water and electricity. The St. Lucia Water and Sewage Company, WASCO, recently issued a notice explaining that they are still working on restoring water to various communities around the island. One resident of Sunbuilt Castries says her water woes are long-standing and she needs answers, but more importantly, a resolution.
It's been an ongoing issue before this Hurricane Elsa for several weeks now. There's been low water or no water, and yeah, it's just continuous. WASCO has been contacted, but the communication with us has not really been very good. We have really no idea what exactly is what's going on or what's causing the issue. So an update or just keeping us informed of what's going on would really be great. I would not honestly know to say if it's an issue that others are experiencing. I can really only speak for myself and my experience. And it's ongoing. I mean, it's not just with this storm that passed. You know, it's something that's continuous without them giving us an answer. So if they had given that explanation or there had been that communication, I would be able to say, well, it's not just my community, it's others. But since we haven't had that, I'm not sure what's going on.
The company has urged the public to exercise patience with them as they are still assessing damage from the hurricane. The Marketing and Communications Officer at WASCO, Sherry-Ann William, explained that while there are repairs that are being done, there has been no deliberate effort on WASCO's part to restrict water from any one community.
Based on your distance from the source of water, you also have a situation where there is heavy demand on the system. So you find that people will say, well, WASCO send the water at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's 6 o'clock and it's gone. It's not that the water is shut off in terms of WASCO's part in this, but it is because of the heavy demand on the system and the fact that the water continues to travel onto the system. So the more people who are using the water at any given time, the less water there is to access by customers. So the further you are, or if you are on an elevation, it will take you much longer to access the water. However, every effort is being made to ensure that our pumps and our other infrastructure remains operational so that people continue to access the supply of water.
She explained that the company has been working assiduously to ensure that every community has water. She also addressed the popular local refrain, quote, WASCO took the water, end quote.
We know that some customers get water at, say, 2 o'clock in the morning, for example, in the wee hours of the morning. People will receive water maybe at midnight. It's not exactly the most ideal time to be collecting water or to be receiving the water. However, we want people to understand that this is not a situation where WASCO has deliberately taken a decision to send the water to customers at these odd hours. It is just that is the time when the water actually reaches your point of the connection.
However, the Sunbuilt resident believes that as the sole water company on island, WASCO needs to improve on its services and information to the general public. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. The latest weather forecast is coming up next.